Hey, welcome to Ultimate Survival Tips. I'm David. Well, at SHOT Show, I had my eyes open for some new survival gear. So when I saw the survival grenade at the Rocky S2V booth, I knew I needed to take a look. So today we'll rip one of these puppies apart, take a look at what's inside. Then we'll go and try it out and see how useful this mini survival kit really is. And before we're all done, we'll talk about who the survival grenade is for and who should look for a different piece of kit. Let's get started. So with the growth of the survival extreme adventure market, Rocky Brands started Rocky S2V and are launching some remarkable high-end clothing and footwear innovations. So to go with many of their adventure clothing items as an everyday carry survival accessory, they came out with this pretty cool looking survival kit that they call the Survival Grenade, which is basically a few hard to improvise survival items wrapped in about 10 foot of paracord that can clip onto stuff with this consumer grade carabiner. It comes with this cardboard sleeve that houses a survival guide by Mountain Shepherd Wilderness Survival School. So when I took the survival grenade up on the mountain, it took me about 2 minutes to unravel it since it was pretty cold out. Here's what I found. We have these two sections of what seem to be high quality paracord with 5 yarns, each yarn easily separating into 3 smaller strands, which is cool. So the total length of usable cordage is anywhere from 10 feet if you keep the paracord together, 60 feet if you separate the yarns and use the outer casing, or up to 160 feet if you separate the yarns into strands, including the outer casing. For more information about basics of paracord, see my survival quick tip video called Paracord Basics. Now one thing I need to mention before I move on. Once you pull the survival grenade apart, there's no instructions for putting it back together. So this is a break glass and use contents in an emergency or a one-use type of kit. Okay, now on the inside we have this mess of tin foil that's wrapped around the survival gear. Of course I tried to save the foil, but in cold weather, and as balled up as it was, saving the foil was difficult. I did it, but not before putting 3 or 4 holes and tears in it. This outer foil is about 5 by 6 inches, or 13 by 15 centimeters. Inside there's another piece of foil that's rolled up nice and didn't rip or tear when I opened it. It also seems a bit higher quality than the stuff that was on the outside. This piece is just shy of 12 by 12 inches or 30 by 30 centimeters. Of course, foil is good for many improvised tasks like cooking, a signal reflector, and stuff like forming it into a makeshift cup. Next we have a small and medium-sized fishing hook. These are actually pretty good quality hooks, unlike the ones we've seen in some other kits. There are also 2 small sinkers and swivels. There's no fishing line in this kit per se, but if you know what you're doing, paracord strands can do just fine. Then we have 6 feet or 1.8 meters of pretty flexible, easy to work with wire for traps, snares, and other things. It should be fine for rabbit and squirrel snares. Anything larger and I think you're going to be disappointed. Next we have this large needle, which could come in handy if you need to stitch anything up using paracord strands. For a blade, the folks at Rocky S2V included a number 22 X-Acto style blade. It has about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters of an edge. It can be used as is, or it can be improvised onto a stick for a little bit more control and leverage. For fire starting, we have this small but sufficient bundle of tinder. And last but not least, we have this ferro rod that's just shy of 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Now since it was cold out, and because fire is important for so many survival tasks, first thing on my mind was starting a fire with this kit. So I grabbed the ferro rod, and the only viable striker in this kit, the X-Acto blade. And that's when the problem started. I grabbed some pretty dry dead grass seed heads with tinder and some birch bark to put under it. First, because of experience, I know that many ferro rods have a dark outer coating to protect them until use. Now this dark coating needs to be scraped off to get a good spark, so I did this with a nearby rock. Then I attempted to get a spark using the back of my little blade as a striker. After a few minutes, I still was not able to get any worthwhile sparks. So I reluctantly turned the blade over to use the lower end of the blade, in hopes that the edge could produce some sparks from this rod. Honestly, I really didn't want to use this blade edge because I knew the hardness of the ferro was going to dull and likely damage this blade, but I was desperate. I did get a few sparks, but not many, so I persisted, and about 2 minutes later, I got a spark large enough to light my tinder. Honestly, I was a bit frustrated. Yes, I did seriously dull 2/3 of the blade. The tip end of my blade is still sharp, but the rest of the blade is not. So the combination of this ferro rod and the dinky blade could be a real problem for someone who's not experienced using fire steel. Now lastly, we have this kind of wonky cardboard pouch with a hole punched in it that houses the Mountain Shepherd Wilderness Survival School 7 Survival Priorities Guide. Okay, Although this 9x12 inch or 23x30 centimeter guide looks pretty cool, it's really pretty useless, if I can be quite honest. Front side has this really nice design, but it's largely wasted with some awesome wilderness photos and bullet point survival sayings and tips. There's a lot of real estate here that could have been filled with practical how-to survival information. On the other side, we have this fairly useful summary of 7 survival priorities. It takes up only about 25% of the total guide. Here's something that's interesting. When you read this guide, it actually talks about gear and supplies that are not included in the survival grenade, which really makes this guide about useless. And it's kind of a tease of how you could have been prepared if you had really been prepared. Now, under priority number 4, in the firecraft section, there finally is a mention about the survival grenade. But here's my biggest beef about this survival guide. It doesn't show you how to do anything to survive. It doesn't even tell you how to use the ferro rod to start a fire. This guide does talk about a lot of positive attitude and right mindset for survival stuff, but a positive mental attitude alone isn't going to keep you alive. All you have is the survival grenade when things go bad in the wilderness. So you're going to need some basic knowledge, and this guide totally fails at providing any practical help on that front. Next, the total size of this guide is just too big. It travels in this stiff cardboard pouch that actually has a bigger footprint than the survival grenade itself. Plus, because it's cardboard, it's probably going to fall apart in the first rainstorm if it's clipped to the outside of your backpack. Also, the internal guide itself is made of paper, not plastic film like some other popular survival guides. So it's going to fall apart as well if it gets dunked in a river or soaked in a storm. Now, since the Rocky S2V Survival Grenade is a new release, there's not much out there in the way of owner comments. Now, there are some quotes on the Survival S2V website from blogs and news sources, but we generally discount short clips from magazines and other publications. So our rating of the S2V Survival Grenade is pretty low at 2.5 out of 5 stars. We would have maybe given it a 3-star rating if it wasn't for the poor excuse of a survival guide that came with it, and the fact that the ferro rod was hard to spark even after we realized our only recourse was using the knife blade in this kit as our striker, which ruined 2/3 of the blade. On a positive note, Rocky Brands is a very large and reputable company that usually gets things right. So I'd say this kit has potential in future versions if Rocky S2V develops a real survival guide that actually shows the distressed adventurer how to use the gear in a survival grenade and how to improvise using probable natural resources to stay alive. They also need to ditch this honkin' big cardboard sleeve, print a future guide on soft plastic film with permanent ink so that it might survive stormy weather and other rough conditions. Upgrading the ferro rod, roughing up the back of the X-Acto blade so that it can be used as an effective fire steel striker would be a big help. I'd also recommend that they include 1 or 2 waterproof matches, just because fire is so important to wilderness survival, so I like redundancy when it comes to fire starting. I'd probably experiment with weaving the survival guide into the outer layer of paracord. So who's the survival grenade for? Well, the Rocky S2V Survival Grenade, at just under $20 US, best suited for those who already know the basics of survival, but want a low-weight and small footprint survival kit they can clip onto a pack or bag and just forget about until they need it. This kit's not really well suited for those who don't have at least some basic survival skills and knowledge, since the survival guide that comes with this kit is all but useless. However, this kit is better than nothing, and it's pretty easy to clip and leave on a bag or a pack. If you're looking for a small basic survival kit, it's a bit more functional. Check out my reviews of the Bear Grylls Basic, Scout, and Ultimate Survival Kits, or the Origin Soul Survival Kit. For more robust and complete ready-to-go survival kits, see my reviews of the GearPods Wilderness Survival System and the new Henry Survival Kit. So we've just taken a look at the Rocky S2V Survival Grenade. For your convenience, I've included links to all the gear that I've mentioned in the video description on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And for more gear reviews, survival tips, and survival news, check out ultimatesurvivaltips.com. And while you're there, grab our monthly survival e-mag, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter to get the latest news and be the first to hear about the great gear giveaway contests we have planned. Okay, this is David. I hope to see you on the other side, and remember, be prepared because you never know.